Hello and welcome to a new story here on my channel. Today I'm presenting to you the story The Echoes of a New World. I hope you really like it. And if you like it, leave a like and abo da. This story will be about a boy with a lot of money but a frail and helpless body. It's about a game called Pandora. That game is special because there are many mysteries about it and it's a little bit supernatural. I hope you really like it, and then I don't want to beat around the bush anymore and start right with the story. Let's go.
It is the year 2125 when the very first massively multiplayer online role-playing game is released. It is called Pandora and stands unrivaled in its field. The digital reality of this game spans three realms. Lumina, the radiant domain of light. Pandora Prime, the game's namesake in the central world where most players congregate, and Niflheim, the shadow-infested underworld of demons. What makes Pandora so popular isn't just one thing, but several. On one hand, it rejects the cliché of good versus evil or light against shadow, instead placing supreme value on freedom. It isn't one of those games where you're forced into non-stop combat or funneled down a single path to power. With its vast diversity, it almost feels like its own living universe. Its graphics are unmatched by any other title on the market, so advanced that many wonder how they manage such realism. It truly is a technological masterpiece, a world unto itself. Of course, a few details are still missing, touch and scent can't yet be simulated, but the resolution is as lifelike as reality. Avatars move like real people. They can jump, spin, do flips, even fly, all in ways no other game has achieved. The lifelike NPCs are another major draw, and the freedom to do nearly anything in the game is a marquee feature. That's why it's rated 18 plus and warns of mature content before logging in. This warning primarily covers the possibility of erotic material and the extreme liberties players can take. Pandora's incredible popularity grows from its sheer variety of possibilities, classes, and paths. This is what piques Timothy's interest. To most players, games like this offer an escape from a cruel reality, a world where they can live out fantasies and dreams. But for Timothy, escape isn't necessary. His parents' immense wealth has already afforded him a level of comfort few can imagine in this era. The gap between rich and poor has never been wider, and Timothy wishes he could do something about it. Though kind-hearted, he's not naive enough to believe a single person could change the entire world. Man, it's frustrating when I think about it like this. I'd love to help, to make a difference, but I'm the second son of one of the richest, or maybe the third richest, families. I really should remember exactly which. Power, politics, those things just don't interest me. I really have no idea how to help all those people. Millions die in the slums every day. The air is toxic, the sky is always gray. Severe weather events destroy hundreds of lives daily. All I can do is live my happy life in this golden cage. It's a bit maddening. In the end, I can't do much. I have the money and the theoretical influence, but I know virtually nothing about politics. Strategic thinking isn't my strength. Living in the moment and creating art, that's where I shine, Timothy reflects as he stands at his window, gazing out at the gray, poisonous world. He feels it's paradoxical that he loves people and wants to help them, yet he simultaneously hates them for the stupidity that's driven humanity over the past century. He finds it unfathomably foolish how greed has led people to exploit the world until rivers turned toxic, nature died, and the sky went black. Yet he must admire their tenacity. They sabotage each other just as fiercely as they persist in their efforts. To him, humanity's journey to this point is a miracle. It would have seemed far more likely that we'd have bombed ourselves back to the Stone Age long ago, but somehow that didn't happen. It's strange, something drives us toward progress rather than ruin, but his thoughts drift into philosophy and away from his goals for the day. Timothy reaches for a glass of fruit juice and downs the mango nectar in one gulp, something so expensive that no one in the slums could ever afford to do. It would be wildly wasteful if anyone who isn't obscenely wealthy saw it, but Timothy sees no shame in enjoying what he can't help being born into. It's just as likely he could have been born anywhere else, or in fact, it's far more probable he wouldn't have been born into one of the wealthiest families in history. As he turns, a flicker of bluish light flashes across the room, and in the next moment rain pelts the thick armored glass windows. The space before him is pristine white, clean and ultra-futuristic. A white sofa sits in the left corner, positioned so he can look past the whirlpool toward the window, and beyond it, Timothy finds the synthetic meals the machines force on him surprisingly tasty and nutritious, and even quite affordable. Of course, he could afford real food, fresh fruit, genuine meat, luxuries no one else could dream of. But Timothy sees no point in wasting a fortune on something he can get for the same flavor and health benefits at a fraction of the price. Paying as much for authenticity as others pay for an apartment strikes him as utterly absurd. Alright, let's get started with the game. I've heard so many great things about Pandora, let's see if it really lives up to the hype. Definitely worth a shot. Timothy's thoughts are interrupted by a violent coughing fit that shakes him so badly he has to brace himself against the wall. It feels like a cruel joke of fate that, despite all his wealth, he cannot maintain a healthy body. Even with every medicine in the world, he wouldn't live a full normal lifespan. Timothy could pinpoint the disease that will eventually kill him, but in the end, death is simply life's course, and knowing exactly when it will happen wouldn't change how he lives. To his mind, even in this dark, dystopian world, there is one goal everyone should pursue: happiness. Knowing your end date wouldn't alter that, so Timothy lives simply to live. How ironic. I need help just to stay upright because these weakness spells hit me, even though I'm so rich. Other people can spend a few seconds in the toxic air outside, I'd probably collapse. As he thinks this, a butler named Len rushes over to support him. Len, thanks for your help. I'm really looking forward to the game. I wonder if you'd ever like to try it yourself. You don't have to, of course, but I could arrange one of these gaming pods for you. You've earned it through your hard work. You could even let your children try it, they're over 20 now, right? They arrive at the room housing his gaming pod. His butler studies him thoughtfully and nods. Timothy shrugs, realizing the offer is too extravagant and insisting would be rude. It was merely a gesture, and there's more than enough money. He sinks into the reclining chair, exhausted from the short walk, and relaxes as sensors activate and the pod begins what was impossible only months ago. Brain-computer interfaces had existed for years, but peculiar challenges made it nearly impossible to simulate sensations for the human mind. Every attempt to trick the brain into perceiving digital stimuli met with only moderate success, until a breakthrough a few months back. No one ever imagined how easily digital information could be fed to the human brain. Exactly how it works remains a mystery to Timothy. He's no tech expert, but he knows it involves convincing the brain that you're asleep. Why that's the only way to transmit digital data is unclear, but it works. For the past month, it's been possible to immerse the mind in an entirely new dream world, a full dive, massively multiplayer RPG. When will it finally kick in? What does logging in feel like? I've heard it's like falling. He wonders this as a sudden chill spreads down his neck and spine. It's a strange sensation. Next moment, everything around him plunges into darkness, then he feels as if he's falling. Timothy tries to scream and move, but nothing happens. He seems to sink into water, and in the next blink it's over. He stands in a featureless white expanse. Pure whiteness surrounds him. He can't even tell if he has a body. Before his mind can register anything, stress, fear, or any sensation, a body forms around him from dark violet cubes, and the feeling of having a body returns. That felt weird, damn fast. Okay, where am I? This must be the lobby or the avatar creation room. Timothy thinks as he looks around. Though nothing else has appeared yet, at least his clothing looks incredibly realistic. A gray t-shirt and matching pants, and that's it. His hair falls long over his shoulders, and his eyes are red instead of green. He glances down and sees small ripples spreading across the floor, which has turned reflective rather than pure white. Welcome to Pandora, player 1,073,475. Please enter a username. A genderless, omnipresent voice intones from the void. My name is Lilith Everblaze, and I want to play as a vampire.
Now choose which faction you wish to join, light or shadow. Says the AI's voice, echoing like a ghost through the empty, endless space. The AI didn't say I have to limit myself to just one faction. It told me to choose which party I belong to. But what if I pick both, since it never explicitly forbade me? It can't hurt to ask. Thinks Timothy as he sees two logos, one a radiant sun, the other a dark orb surrounded by tiny stars and silver runes. On impulse, Timothy taps both symbols. Suddenly, heavenly chimes ring through the void and the two icons merge into a new emblem representing dawn, half darkness, half light. On one side, a rising sun, on the other, a setting moon. Timothy immediately understands its meaning. Twilight, a new faction. His suspicion is confirmed in an unexpected way as the world around him trembles. Congratulations, player Lilith Everblaze. You have completed a hidden objective and unlocked the neutral faction. The moment you finalize your character, a global announcement will broadcast to every Pandora player, announcing the emergence of a new faction and its first member. Would you like to keep your username private? What information would you like to share with the entire player base? You have the right to conceal all your secrets. In that case, the global alert will simply state that a new faction exists and that one player has joined it. Explains the AI, known in-game as admin, or, affectionately, God, since it acts like a deity within Pandora. Although, as Timothy has heard, the developers haven't even bothered to officially name it yet. I'd really prefer not to broadcast my name. You can reveal my race, let everyone know I'm a vampire. That ought to be hard enough to discover. Okay, and how do I proceed with customizing my character's appearance? What are the exact details? And could you, while I create my avatar, give me a summary of Pandora's lore, just the key aspects so I'm fully up to date? Says Timothy, stepping forward as if speaking while walking feels more natural. Certainly, player Lilith Everblaze. To create your character, simply open the character creation menu. You can control it via voice commands or manually with sliders, whichever you prefer. As for the game itself, Pandora is a world where gods once created humans and other mythical beings. But when the world stagnated and civilizations rose and fell, the gods grew bored. Finally, they opened gates to other worlds, or rather, to another realm. They didn't know what would come through. Formless energy entities entered Pandora and, bound by reality's rules, were forced to take shape. The inhabitants called these beings players. Besides Pandora Prime, there is Lumina, the holy realm of angels and light creatures, and the shadowy planet known by many names, Niflheim, Muspelheim, home to demons of darkness. Yet light and shadow have intermingled since time immemorial, so there are benevolent angels, virtuous demons, and malevolent angels, good and evil or independent of the world you're born into or the faction you choose. As a newcomer, you must complete a series of tutorials before interacting freely with other players. During this initial phase, your character won't suffer level loss on death nor any respawn penalties. Pain perception in Pandora is reduced by 90%, and if sensory input becomes too intense, the system logs you out automatically. That's due to the brain-computer interface. Since this is essentially a dream, the brain severs the connection if the stimuli become too graphic or extreme. Therefore, safety parameters exist to prevent accidental logouts. Explains the AI, which, in Timothy's mind, now needs a proper name. Chat, this is all really fascinating, but I can't just call you, or, voice, forever. I'll call you God, or maybe Pandora, since that's the game's name. Yeah, why not? I'll call you Miss P, after Pandora. It sounds a bit odd, but I'll go with it. So, Miss P, is there anything else I should know about the game? And what happens if I fail to complete the tutorials? Is there a time limit? And what happens afterward? Are there safe zones, like in other games? And what about the age restriction? Says Timothy as he issues a short voice command and the character creation interface appears before him. It looks straightforward and intuitive, Timothy observes as he sees the sliders and categories. The first category is muscle and body proportions. The second is color, appearance. The third is clothing. Gender is separate, and Timothy sees he must select that first. When he sees the male and female icons, He feels a playful flutter in his chest and a mischievous itch in his fingers, and every boy, he reasons, ought to try being a girl at least once. He taps the female symbol. As soon as his finger presses the female icon, he thinks how amusing it will be later to see everyone's reactions to the revelation of a third faction. Pandora's lore, of gods and otherworldly energy beings, is already compelling. He likes that the game explains where players come from and what they are. Timothy can't help but smile as a body materializes before him from dark violet cubes. It's a simple female form, naked, but without any explicit features like nipples or genitals. The smooth skin serves only to define proper proportions and appearance. He sets the hair color to white, pauses to choose an eye color, then begins adjusting muscle tone and height. With a few clicks, he makes his avatar exactly as tall as he is, at the upper end of average male height, but fitting for his female form, which he envisions as slightly taller than average. He feels like an artist as he sculpts his avatar and turns to Miss Pandora. Are there any more details you'd like to give me about the starting quests? What about inventory? That's a staple in most games. Does Pandora have an inventory system? And if so, does it work like other games or differently? He asks on impulse. You will gain access to your inventory during the beginner quest on Pandora Prime, Miss Pandora replies once Timothy finishes customizing his female form. Your task is to locate relics of a long-lost era. You'll receive the transdimensional pouch, an artifact that instinctively stores and retrieves objects from pocket dimensions. Miss Pandora's description ends just as Timothy admires his avatar's details. This avatar is a female vampire with enviable curves, shapely breasts, and a lean, athletic build, abs clearly defined. She stands 1.80 meters tall, with fiery red eyes and long white silver hair. Her lips match her eyes in shade, fiery red, giving her an almost heavenly, seductive appearance. Timothy studies the figure and decides it would be cooler if the eyes reflected the light and dark theme. He can't add horns, there's no option, but he could make one eye white golden and the other demonic. It'd be a fitting metaphor for balance and wouldn't affect his gameplay since vision remains unimpaired. He clicks into the eye settings. In no time, he achieves the look he wants. The avatar's right eye glows gold white, the iris rim shines like a solar halo, while the rest is jet black, with a dark cross at its center, a nod to sacred symbolism. The sclera, too, is black. The left, demonic eye resembles dragonfire, its flame red iris cut by a vertical slit pupil that looks like a black wound in red flames. Next, Timothy tweaks the hair. The long white silver locks need more depth, so he makes the base pure white with a luminous sheen, as if spun from moonlight. He sprinkles in silver strands for a metallic glint, then adds a subtle rainbow iridescence, like dipping each strand in starlight. He knows some would call him a perfectionist for fussing over such minutiae, but he's having fun. Finally satisfied, Timothy notes there are no details around the avatar's groin. Everything is blurred out, like in a strange dream. He turns to Miss Pandora and asks why the intimate areas are censored and why the skin is so uniformly smooth. While Pandora champions freedom, even erotic expression, unrestricted nudity can easily tip into excessive adult content, Miss Pandora explains. Therefore, rules apply. Do not disrobe in public zones without reason. Private or small group areas allow nudity and free expression. Wear or say whatever you like, but the game's developers, Parallax, aren't responsible for others' reactions. Harassment, coercion, or extortion, digital or otherwise, is prohibited and punishable. If you can't tolerate this content, you shouldn't play. Public areas remain modest. No unnecessary provocative behavior. Timothy nods, makes sense. He then asks if he can lift the censorship right now. Instantly, the avatar stands before him in all her naked beauty, and a grin spreads across his face. He taps the clothing menu and is amazed by the sheer variety of garments, colors, styles, and materials at his disposal. Pandora's interface is remarkably intuitive. He toggles between the menu and his avatar, sampling looks. He's tempted to roam scantily clad, but remembers that clothes have real effects, warmth, cold resistance, even in this dreamlike world. A vampire may resist temperature extremes, but strolling nearly nude remains foolish, just as it would in reality. He sees no reason to test that. There is, in fact, no limit to the number of clothing pieces he can design. These are purely aesthetic and have no special powers. He chooses a white robe that brushes his calves, enough to feel mage-like without trailing on the floor. It's trimmed in gold and emblazoned with violet runes, accented by amethyst crystals. Beneath it, a simple golden breastplate provides actual protection. Underneath, the avatar wears a loincloth functioning as underwear and a tight wrap around her chest. Timothy chuckles at the irony. Pandora claims total freedom, yet he's wrapping a vampire's breasts. It won't hamper his gameplay, and it amuses him. That'll be my primary outfit. What else should I pick? Thinks Timothy as 10 more minutes slip by in wardrobe tinkering. He appreciates that AI never loses patience. He could spend hours perfecting his avatar between worlds, and Pandora would wait serenely. He loves that voice commands work and that he can preview his avatar from every angle. He's tempted to linger, but the game world beyond beckons. He inspects his completed avatar, the robe, and the ornate backpack he designed for carrying all these custom outfits. After all, if you can't have an inventory, you need a pack. Okay, I'm done. How long will the tutorial last? Asks Timothy. Your tutorial will begin shortly and will last as long as you need to complete it, says the AI, Pandora. No sooner has Pandora finished speaking than everything around Timothy turns white. The interface he'd been using to design his avatar fades away, and in the next moment color floods back as the world materializes. He stands in a breathtaking landscape, grass of pale blue, trees and shrubs in shades of azure, crimson, and violet. Wispy clouds hover nearby, and Timothy immediately knows where he is. Lumina, the sacred realm of light, home to multiple kingdoms and empires. It is, quite literally, heaven in the world of Pandora, where creatures of darkness cannot survive for long. He glances toward the horizon, wishing he could see Maris Lumina, the ocean of light, one of the game's most wondrous sights, but even without it, he is awestruck by the alien flora and fauna, the absence of shadows, and the stars glittering overhead. It feels like a cosmic masterpiece. Timothy is so enchanted by his surroundings that it takes him several minutes to refocus on his avatar. It doesn't feel as if his body has changed. Instead, he seems to be looking down from a new perspective, noticing curves and contours that weren't apparent before. The simulation still cannot perfectly convey the weight and motion of a female form, especially breast movement, but it remains a dream. Yet the winds caress, the lights dance, and the lifelike motion astound him. No other game has ever felt this real. As his avatar Lilith Everblaze stands before him, a hollow window shimmers into view, drawing his attention. It's translucent, rendered in deep violet with gold filigree and white text. Lilith Everblaze, your backstory has been woven into this world. The Twilight faction is now integrated, and in 12 minutes a global announcement will herald the birth of a new faction. Ancestor of Twilight, cannot be removed. It grants you immunity to both light and shadow effects. Neither positive nor negative elemental effects will affect you as strongly as those in the light or shadow factions. Your resistance to both forces will increase as you level up, announces the disembodied voice of Pandora. Timothy is speechless. What he'd scribbled on a whim, that his avatar was the primordial vampire cast out of heaven, has become reality in Pandora. Dozens of questions spring to mind, and he senses Pandora won't volunteer all the answers. In his lore, Lilith Everblaze had once been an immensely powerful seraph, perhaps one of the 4 archangels, exiled for some transgression. How can the game explain that players are energy beings from another world yet still embed their personal histories so seamlessly? It makes no sense, unless the game sees players as inheritors of those celestial powers. Why is my backstory integrated into this world if I'm supposed to be an energy being from another plane? Isn't that like claiming someone else's life story? Does this even make logical sense in Pandora's universe? Do you understand my dilemma, Pandora? Asks Timothy, unconcerned that he's addressing an AI that will never take offense. Thank you for pointing that out. This is indeed a logical inconsistency we've overlooked. We will correct it in the next update, replies Pandora in its unfailingly polite tone, an amiability that, over time, can grow irritating. Then I'll begin the starter quest, but I'm wondering where to look. What exactly are the quest requirements, and why does it take several minutes for the global announcement to go out? Maybe there'll be an update. Oh well, I'll just start exploring, perhaps I'll find something nearby. Thinks Timothy as his avatar Lilith Everblaze sets off. With each step, her movements mirror his real body perfectly, except for touch and the feel of wind, which are absent. Still, the way the breeze caresses her robes and rustles the alien foliage is breathtaking, and Timothy admits he could never tire of these vistas. The thought that humanity destroyed such natural beauty out of greed fills him with loathing, for people's arrogance and avarice, at least their destructive side. Part of Timothy's mind insists humans are simply products of their nature and need guidance and justice. Another part argues that justice has obviously failed for centuries. Perhaps a monarchy would work, but he's unsure whether people are fundamentally good or bad. They certainly harm the environment, yet countless future possibilities exist to save this world, or even terraform others. Now that our technology can create digital realities of this caliber and let us roam other worlds in dreams, plus we travel space with ease, the next great human achievement looms. Above all, why have no mind control technologies emerged? With my family's resources, I'd know if anyone was researching it. Yet something blocks effective brain-computer interaction, despite interfaces existing for decades. Hacking the brain seems impossible, no evidence exists. There must be a barrier, but what? He wanders aimlessly, recalling the tutorial's instructions: find ruins, recover artifacts, and then locate the transdimensional pouch, which stands in for an inventory. Once he secures that, the first phase ends, nothing more was specified. He entertains a mischievous thought. Okay, I'll construct a cart and haul all the valuables I find from point A to point B. Wood is common, but minerals would be worthwhile. Once I locate the pouch, I can toss everything nearby into it, right before finishing the quest. That would be hilarious. He thinks with a secret grin, unaware. He explores for several more minutes without finding anything extraordinary, until he notices massive floating islands above Maris Lumina, the Sea of Light. Their scale dwarfs the other two worlds. Rumors say Maris Lumina is over 2,000 times larger than the system's largest planet, but Timothy can hardly grasp such enormity. Despite the game's touted realism, imagining those islands as true planetary sizes strains belief. Suddenly, a glint of stone catches his eye, white marble or silvery metal reflecting light. Odd, there's no direct sun here, so how could an indirect glow produce such reflections? Timothy realizes he lacks the mental framework to predict these phenomena, though he can always chalk it up to magic, an explanation he finds unsatisfyingly lazy. Drawn closer, Lilith Everblaze inspects what turns out to be a small, palace-like temple, the tip of a vast pyramid, adorned with silver runes in a half-collapsed inner chamber. The material looks precious, but what surprises him most is that he can read the inscriptions, despite never learning this language. What is this script? Why can I read it? My era's technology shouldn't allow information to project directly into my mind. Nothing about a dream or digital reality should include this. Something's off. Timothy runs a hand through his avatar's hair, more awareness of movement than a true sense of touch, and halts. On impulse, he opens an in-game browser and searches for discussions about the temple's script. What he finds is astonishing. Many players report bizarre Pandora anomalies. Some claim the game relieved them of chronic pain and left them feeling rested. Impossible features. No logical explanation exists for his sudden literacy of the runes. No one else reads them. One user even asserts that, after playing Pandora, he could walk again, despite being paraplegic. What the fuck is this bullshit? Do they really expect me to believe this marketing crap? But if it isn't marketing, because even the stingiest person wouldn't invent these claims, then what the hell is going on in Pandora? A digital reality logging into the brain could never have physical effects. Chat end. Thinks Timothy as the forum vanishes, every post erased. The site no longer exists, as if it never did. To Timothy, Pandora's swift censorship confirms these aren't promo stunts or a rival's sabotage, those make no sense. There's more behind these rumors than Pandora cares to admit, and that suggests at least part of them are real. I wonder what it all means. Why is this game so strange? Should I keep playing or stop? But it's just too cool to abandon for a few odd details. Maybe the unknown and the weird are part of the fun, and maybe even life-changing in a good way. I think I'll keep playing. Thinks Timothy as his avatar Lilith Everblaze approaches the opening at the top of the pyramid and kneels to slip inside. He realizes that he doesn't so much feel his body move as simply, no, what's happening, more like a lucid dream than real motion. Okay, this is really weird, being able to dive into a digital reality as if I were dreaming, experiencing all this. Even today's tech can barely manage virtual reality. But why was it so hard for so long? What stopped researchers from fooling the human mind? So many questions, no answers. Whatever, time to have fun. And if there's something paranormal about this game, I'll find out soon enough. Thinks Timothy, noting that the chamber below the hole is neither vast nor too deep. The drop should be survivable, if fall damage even exists in this game. He shrugs and leaps without hesitation. The room below is square, and to Lilith's left she sees a stairway leading down. No other passages are visible. Timothy, not an expert in hidden corridors, doubts he'd find a secret way even if he tried. As his eyes adjust to the dim light, he notices silvery inscriptions on the walls. Before he can decipher them, braziers mounted on the walls ignite, bathing the room in flickering red light. Intricate mosaics and murals adorn the walls. It feels like a burial chamber, though Timothy can't be certain, having no background in archaeology. His motto has always been that ancient history belongs to the dead, and the dead should be forgotten. He might have taken more interest if the past somehow influenced the present, like in an anime where you reincarnate and forget the world around you. I'm quite a paradox. I both love and hate humanity. I appreciate art and weathered ruins. They're beautiful, but I don't want to learn about the past. I'm a walking contradiction. I love my own body and admire women's bodies for their movement. Purely aesthetic, not erotic. And honestly, I also appreciate a well-toned male physique if it's aesthetically pleasing. Am I bisexual? Who cares? A sculpted torso is attractive on anyone. Thinks Timothy as a gust of wind stirs his robe, coming from the stairwell on his left. The steps look treacherous, and small holes in the walls hint at traps. This is definitely a trap corridor. I wonder if there are monsters or treasure troves where you can find cool loot. I should be cautious. Yeah, why not test a few stones first? Better paranoid than sorry. But I can respawn. It'd just suck to respawn on this floating island and wait minutes to return. Okay, I'll be cautious. Thinks Timothy as he picks up a sizable rock and, though he feels no physical strain, instinctively knows how much effort his vampiric form would exert if it were real. All right, that's odd. This isn't like any VR or dream. It's a weird hybrid of both. I instinctively know I can't die, and I know how to log out, even though there's no button. It's like I just wake up. And why does time flow slightly faster here? I feel like I've been in the game 15 minutes, but only 10 have passed outside. Weird. Thinks Timothy as he tosses the rock down the corridor to test for traps. Moments later, arrows shoot from the walls and ricochet off the opposite side. Timothy shrugs, deciding he must climb instead. With a casual jump, about 2 meters forward and 4 down, he lands near the wall and grips the arrow holes with his fingertips. To his amazement, it holds. A level 0 vampire's strength far exceeds that of any human. He couldn't imagine doing this in his real body. Okay, now what? I didn't think this through. Jumping across would be harder. I'll give it a shot. If I fail, I respawn. Thinks Timothy as he leaps toward the opposite wall, but fails to catch it. The world blurs, and arrows fly past before it all stops. I can't believe that worked. I'm still alive. That's weird, and I feel like I've lost maybe 20% of my HP. How can I even feel that? At least I don't get some annoying anime-style pop-up blocking my view. Thinks Timothy as he stands, spotting 2 arrows embedded in his arm and abdomen. He yanks the first free. Blood sprays, drips to the floor, and the wound instantly begins healing, though he loses another 5% HP. The second arrow follows suit. As his gaze drifts to the glittering gold ahead, he realizes he's entered a pharaoh's treasure chamber. Even without knowing the previous room's purpose, it's clear. Yet something is off. The gold heaps tremble ever so slightly, though the floor remains still. Are they breathing? Moving? As he studies them, 2 jewels rest in an odd formation, and then it clicks. These gold piles could be monsters. Not wanting to rouse them, Timothy stealthily creeps past, now close enough to see their creatures whose scales look like golden coins. No way I'm being another greedy idiot. I'm not risking that. If there's an easier path, I'll take it. Straight ahead is clear, left and right are blocked by sleeping gold beast traps. I don't even know their name. Maybe there's a lore book here somewhere about the local fauna. I just hope it loads faster than real books do. Thinks Timothy as he steps into the next chamber, a vast, empty hall that feels oddly barren compared to the rest. At the far end hovers a brown leather sack embossed with blue-violet sigils, radiating energy. A holographic display appears. This is the transdimensional pouch, your inventory artifact. How am I supposed to get across? I don't even know if there are traps, or what kind of traps they might be. I need to find some kind of way. Timothy hesitated, wondering whether he should try to feel out the ground first or throw something ahead to trigger any potential traps. There were so many types of traps that could make sense in a place like this. Inside the game, Timothy, the avatar of his in-game body, shrugged. Might as well try, he thought. Respawns are on, and I won't lose anything anyway. But just as Timothy prepared to take a step forward, the world around him froze. A glowing holographic screen blinked to life before him. The message displayed beneath a symbol he'd seen before, the sigil of the Twilight faction, light and darkness intertwined. An artificial voice rang out, calm but mechanical. An achievement has been unlocked, one that affects the entire game of Pandora. The true nature of light and shadow has been recognized through their union. Congratulations to the first player of the Twilight faction. As a reward for being the first to choose the Twilight path, you are granted the title, Ancestor of Twilight. This will have significance as the game progresses. If you, too, wish to gain the benefits of the Twilight faction, Select Twilight when logging into a new avatar and experience life between light and shadow. Discover what it means to belong fully to neither light nor darkness. The voice belonged to the AI Timothy had named Miss Pandora. But the announcement wasn't over. The AI declared its own name. Vega. This sudden development confused Timothy for a second. But then again, AI often did things that were difficult to fully understand. Before he could think much more about it, the world resumed. He stood once again in the vast, temple-like chamber. The transdimensional sack still hovered above the altar about 50 meters ahead. Timothy wasn't sure how to reach it or even where to begin. But this was a game. He could try things here he'd never dare in real life. So he decided to experiment. He knew it was reckless, and that he might very well die, but in the game, that didn't matter. He stepped onto the first square tile. A piercing white beam of light shot from the wall without warning. Timothy barely dodged, grateful for all the martial arts films he'd watched. This world was like a dream, responsive to intention, not bound by physical reality. He staggered a little, regained his balance, and looked ahead into the empty chamber. It was clear now that the floor triggered the light beams. But Timothy's sharp eyes also noticed the source, white crystals embedded in the walls. He crouched low, locked his eyes on the altar, and leapt forward with all his strength. No normal human, even one at the peak of physical training, could achieve this in reality without genetic or cybernetic enhancement. But this was Pandora. Timothy soared through the air, a grin on his face, and landed over 10 meters ahead, in the middle of the hall. The stone tile beneath him sank slightly. Suddenly, multiple beams hissed past him from all sides. It was thrilling, fascinating, stunning, and utterly wonderful. The realism of this game was unmatched. Every detail delighted Timothy. This was the perfect escape from his real-world pain and the frailty of his physical body. He jumped again, dodging more beams midair. His health bar dropped rapidly, from 100% to 60%, then to 40%. The damage was greater than he'd expected, but he landed safely beside the small altar at the far end of the chamber. The intricate carvings and silver symbols etched into the altar were now visible in sharp detail. When Timothy touched the transdimensional bag, another holographic window appeared, asking if he wanted to equip it. But Timothy trusted his gut. He shook his head, ignored the prompt, and waited for his health to regenerate. Then he turned and headed back, curious to explore the ruins further. It seemed there was no time limit here. Just as I thought, the devs clearly didn't anticipate that someone would simply take the transdimensional bag without equipping it. No one seems to think the way I do. Let's see if I can store items inside it without using it directly. That was Timothy's thought, and to his surprise, it actually worked. He could put items inside the bag, even without equipping it. That realization struck him as deeply unusual. Timothy snuck past the gold monsters with great care, successfully avoiding waking any of them. He entered other paths of the labyrinth, eager to see what else could be discovered. One thought crossed his mind. What would happen if I placed one inventory bag inside another? Was it possible? Would it work? Could it break the game? It was worth testing, if only to see whether this world's logic held up. Or if it had its own hidden flaws waiting to be uncovered. Chapter 2. The beginner village. Timothy searched the ruins for more transdimensional pouches and, after several failures and a few in-game deaths over an hour and a half, finally uncovered 2 more bags. The moment of truth came when he tried to nest the 2 new pouches inside the first one he'd found. To his surprise, the 2 sacks in his hands began to sparkle and pixelate before vanishing entirely, Though somehow that wasn't shocking, since he'd half expected something odd. Somehow I never thought that would work. But whatever, hold on to the starting inventory for now. Timothy thought to himself as he spotted a pickaxe lying beside a skeleton, apparently a fallen explorer who'd come here seeking the temple's secrets. His eyes didn't linger on the bones or the story that corpse might tell, but instead drifted to the wall, and a daring idea struck him. He knew it was absurd to try, yet it was worth a shot. Timothy clipped the transdimensional pouch to his belt and reached for the pickaxe, only to find the dead adventurer surprisingly unwilling to let it go, even in death. "Stop holding on to that thing. You're dead, so you won't be needing this pickaxe," murmured his avatar, confusing Timothy for a moment. He hadn't expected his character to speak, let alone see lip movements sync to the words. With a firm tug, Timothy finally pried the pickaxe free and chose a collapsed section of wall to test. Behind the ruined veneer was solid rock, and it wasn't surprising that his blows scarcely left a mark. Of course, dungeon inner walls should be indestructible. But after several minutes, he discovered a flaw. Not everything was defined as unbreakable. When he slid a statue aside, one that had once blocked part of the wall, he revealed plain white stone beneath. It seemed only the outer layer was impervious, some elements were even movable. Timothy experimented, prying at a section he could expose by hand with modest success, until he recalled the statue in the side chamber that hadn't been anchored to the floor. One decisive heave showed it could indeed be shifted, obviously an unintended oversight, since the floor beneath was pure white with no texture or color. "Well, I've already found something, a bug in the game," Timothy thought as he swung the pickaxe at the exposed area. Oddly, this actually dislodged a chunk of that featureless white material. Since he had no reason to waste it, he tossed the fragment into his transdimensional pouch and watched as the strange matter vanished inside.
And that's it for today. I hope you really liked it, and if you had fun listening to my story, leave a like and abo. Don't forget to recommend my YouTube channel to your friends. And if you now want to go to the next video, the newest video I uploaded, you can click on the left side on the screen. On the right side of the screen you find now the playlist, if I am in the mood of making a playlist. If not, the next parts will have the playlist. Whatever, I hope you have a good day. See you later, alligator, toodaloo, kangaroo, and take care, goodbye, until next time.